Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about what is Apache Maven, why we need to go for Apache Maven, okay? And we discussed about what is the build process, how to do the Maven setup, what is Maven terminology, Maven project creation, Maven goals execution. Okay, Maven is a build tool which is used to automate the build process for Java applications. Build process nothing but downloading the libraries for the project, compiling the source code of the project, executing unit test cases of the project, packaging our project as a jar file or war file comes under build process. Okay, standalone applications will be packaged as a jar file, web applications will be packaged as war file. The main aim of the Maven is to simplify the build process. So you no need to do much work in order to build your Java application. So simply you take the help of the Maven tool. Maven will do the work for you. And we have done the Maven setup in our Windows machine. And we discussed about Maven terminology. So if you want to work with the Maven tool, then you should know this terminology: archetype, group ID, artifact ID, version, packaging, dependencies, repositories, goals, POM, like that. There are several terms are available. Now, we created one Maven project in the command prompt, as well as we created Maven project in the IDE also. So in the CLI, if you want to create the Maven project, this is the command. Once the project is created, we are able to execute our Maven goals. Goals are very important here. Goals are used to perform the build process. We have goals like clean goal is available, clean goal, compile goal, test goal, package goal, and install goal is available. So when you go for clean goal, target folder will be deleted. When you go for compile goal, source code will be compiled and bytecode will be generated. Basically, .java files will be converted to .class files. When you go for compile, the .class files will be stored into target directory. And the next one, MVN test is available, which is used to execute unit test cases. The next one, MVN package goal is available. MVN package, basically, it is used to package our application as a jar file or war file. And the next one, MVN install goal is available, which is a top level goal. It will store our project into Maven repository. So there are three types of repositories available for Maven. Central repository is available, remote repository is available, and local repository is also available. And we are able to create the Maven project in the IDE. You can create it in the Eclipse, STS, IntelliJ. So mainly these are the three IDEs famous for Java applications development. So when you are using IDE, Maven is by default integrated in all those IDEs. Yesterday, we created the Maven project in the IntelliJ IDE. Okay, fine. Once it is created in the IntelliJ IDE, directly we can open the terminal and we can execute the goals here. Directly we can execute the goals here. Fine. Now, so let me go to this project. Yesterday we created the project. pom.xml file is available. So in this project currently there are no dependencies available. In our project currently there are no dependencies available. So what are Maven dependencies and how to add the Maven dependencies? So Maven dependencies nothing but the libraries that are required to develop our Maven project. So for every Java application, some dependencies are required, like JUnit dependency, Spring dependency, Spring Boot dependency, Log4j dependency, Kafka dependency, Redis dependency. So Java project means we are going to use several libraries and we are going to develop our application. So the jar files which are required to develop our application, those are called as dependencies. So generally, what all the dependencies are required for our application, we need to download them and we need to add the dependencies to project build path. So you need to go to the Spring website, you download the Spring jar files, you add the Spring jar files to the project build path. That is a normal process. Libraries required to develop our Java application are called as Maven dependencies. Okay, example: Spring Core, Spring JDBC, Spring Boot Starter, Jackson dependency, JUnit dependency, log4j. These all are the dependencies. These all are the jar files that are required to run our application. These all are the jar files that are required to run our application. These are called as libraries. Libraries required to develop our Java application are called as dependencies. So we need to add these required dependencies in the pom.xml. Instead of we are downloading the dependencies and adding to the build path. If you add these dependencies in the pom.xml, if you add these dependencies in the pom.xml file, then Maven will download those dependencies and will add to the project build path. So instead of we are downloading the dependencies, Maven will take care of these dependencies. So we can find the Maven dependencies in one website that is called mvnrepository.com. Okay, so there is one website is available which is mvnrepository.com. In that website, you can find out all the dependencies that are required for our application. So go here and type mvnrepository.com. You can see all the dependencies here. Suppose you want Spring dependency, let us type Spring here. Then they will show you all the dependencies for the Spring. Spring Core, Spring Web, Spring Context, Spring Test, all the dependencies are available. So let us click on this Spring Context dependency. I want the Spring Context dependency and click on this version number. Okay, dependency available. Copy this dependency. Now we need to add the dependencies in the pom.xml. That is a Maven configuration file. So in the Maven configuration file, so here you need to add one tag called dependencies tag. Okay, inside the dependencies tag, you can configure multiple dependencies. I'm configuring one dependency which is called Spring Context dependency. Group ID is org.spring framework. That means the Spring people developed this Spring Context project. Group ID is org.spring framework. Artifact ID, Spring Context, version 6.1.11, which is the latest version of the Spring framework, 6.x version. So you need to add a tag called dependencies. In that you can add the dependency. Spring dependency I'm adding, then save that. So once this dependency is added, you need to right click on the project and you need to reload the project. Okay, Maven reload the project. So whenever you right click on the project, there is an option called Maven because it is a Maven project. There is an option called reload project available. Click on reload project. So whenever you reload the project, it is going to download the libraries. Okay. Now it is going to download the libraries that are required for our application. Now you see Maven libraries are downloaded. Spring Framework library, external libraries. You can see. So whenever we add this dependency in the external libraries, Java libraries are downloaded. Java 17 version we are using. So Java libraries downloaded for our application. So Java libraries plus external libraries. External libraries nothing but our Maven dependencies. So as I have added Spring Context, you can see Spring Framework, Spring Expression, Spring Core, Spring Beans, AOP, Micrometer, these dependencies are downloaded. Suppose if I remove this dependency from here, if I remove this dependency and if I do the Maven reload project, now you see external libraries only Java dependencies are available. Maven dependencies are not available. So whatever the libraries that are required for your project, whatever the libraries which are required for our project, we are going to get here. Whatever the libraries we are required for our project, we are going to get here by using this pom.xml. So let me add the dependency in the pom.xml. When you add the dependency in the pom.xml, so by default it is not downloading. You just go to the project, Maven, reload the project. So whenever you reload the Maven project, this Maven is downloading the dependencies which are required for our application. So I have added Maven dependency for Spring Context. Then Spring jar files it downloaded. Spring jar files it downloaded. These are called dependencies. These are called dependencies. Are you guys clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? Maven dependencies. Maven dependency is nothing but the libraries that are required to develop our Java application. Those are called as Maven dependencies. So we need to add the required dependencies in the project pom.xml file. So here, when we add the dependencies in the Maven pom.xml file, Maven will download the dependencies and will add the dependencies to project build path. Actually, earlier programmers used to do this task manually. We need to download the dependencies and we need to add the dependencies to the build path. But now we are using Maven as a build tool. Maven dependencies we can find in the mvnrepository.com. When we add the dependencies in the pom.xml file, then Maven will download those dependencies and will add to project build path. Maven dependencies we can find in one website which is called mvnrepository.com. Maven dependencies we can find in below website. That website is mvnrepository.com. So we need to add the required dependencies in Maven project pom.xml file. So when we add the dependencies in the pom.xml file, then Maven will download those dependencies and will add to our project build path. Maven dependencies we can find in the below website mvnrepository.com. Are you clear? Now, how to add the dependencies in the pom.xml? So we need to use dependencies tag, and in the dependencies tag, we are going to configure our dependency. Multiple dependencies can be added in the pom.xml. Then Maven will download those dependencies. And you remember, I'm adding one dependency which is called Spring Context. I'm adding only one dependency called Spring Context. After adding the dependency, right click on the project, Maven, reload the project. After adding the dependency in the pom.xml, after adding dependency in pom.xml file, then right click on project, Maven, reload project. Maven reload project, so that it will download the dependencies from the internet and it will add to the project build path. We can see the dependencies downloaded in external libraries folder. We can see libraries downloaded in external dependencies folder. External dependencies folder is available. So external libraries folder is available. External libraries folder is available. In that folder, all the dependencies available. Java dependencies available and Spring dependencies available. And if you observe, I have added only one dependency. That is called Spring Context dependency. When I add the Spring Context dependency, is it downloading only context dependency? It is downloading AOP, beans, context, core dependencies also. Guys, it is downloading only context jar file, or it is downloading other jar files also. It is downloading only context jar file, or it is downloading other jar files also. I have added only context dependency. But is it downloading only context dependency, or it is downloading other dependencies also? It is downloading only context dependency, or it is downloading other dependencies also? Come on. It is downloading other dependencies also. This concept is called as transitive dependency management. That means when you add one dependency, Maven will download all the required dependencies for us, which is called transitive dependency management. That means if you add context dependency, Maven is downloading core dependency, beans dependency, AOP dependency, JCL dependency also. So when we add context dependency, it is downloading Spring Core dependency, Spring Beans, Spring AOP, Spring JCL. So that means Maven is performing transdiv dependency management. Transdiv dependency management, nothing but when you add one dependency, it is downloading other dependencies also which are required for us. It is download, if you add one dependency, it is downloading other dependencies also which are required for us. This is called transdiv dependency management. Our project requires a context requires core requires beans. So like this, it is identifying the tree, what all the dependencies are required. Our project requires a context requires core requires beans. That's why it is performing transdiv dependency management. Let me go and add the Spring JDBC dependency, guys. Let me go and find the Spring JDBC. Same thing, whatever the Spring context is added, just we need to add one more dependency, Spring JDBC. Okay, so Spring JDBC module, Spring JDBC. After adding the dependency, now can you see Spring JDBC available here? Micrometer is there, core, AOP, beans, context, core, expression, JCL. JDBC not available. So what I need to do, right click on the Maven, project, Maven, reload the project. So whenever you reload the project, it will download the dependencies. Now you see, when I add the Spring JDBC, it downloaded JDBC plus a transaction. So when I add only Spring JDBC dependency, it is downloading JDBC plus transaction dependency also. That is called transdiv dependency management. That is called as transdiv dependency management. That means if you add one dependency, it is downloading other dependencies also which are required for the project. If you add one dependency, it is downloading other dependencies also which are required for the project. That concept is called transdiv dependency management. So with this transdiv dependency management, we have one advantage and we have one disadvantage also. Can you tell me what is the advantage and what is the disadvantage with this transdiv dependency management? What is the advantage we have and what is the disadvantage we have with the transdiv dependency management? Guys, what is the advantage and what is the disadvantage we have with the transdiv dependency management? What is the advantage and what is the disadvantage we have? Come on. What is the advantage and disadvantage? The advantage is here, the advantage is it is simplifying Maven configuration. It is simplifying Maven configurations. So advantage, downloading child dependencies. Downloading child dependencies. I need one dependency and for that some childs are available. It is downloading child dependencies. Then coming to disadvantage, downloading unwanted dependencies also. Downloading unwanted dependencies also. For my project, AOP dependency not required. For example, I'm not using AOP dependency. So when I add context dependency, it is downloading AOP also, which is not required for my project. Okay, I have downloaded context dependency. I'm adding context dependency. We don't need AOP, but AOP is also coming. So when I add context, core is coming. That is the advantage for me. Child dependencies are downloading. We no need to add all the child dependencies. It is downloading child dependencies by default. But what about this AOP? AOP dependency, I don't need. Unnecessarily it is loading the AOP dependency here. In the AOP dependency, AOP jar file is there. In the AOP jar file, there are so many classes are available. Unnecessarily, it is loading all those classes, which is wasting my JVM's memory. So if you add the dependencies which you are not using, then it is waste of memory, right? Adding a dependency means jar files will be loaded. Those jar files will be loaded into JVM. Inside the jar file, that class files will be available. Unnecessarily, you are loading unwanted classes into JVM, which is wasting JVM's memory. Okay, unnecessarily we are loading unnecessarily we are loading the jars which we are not using in the project. So whenever we go for Maven, there is a concept of transitive dependency management concept available. So that means when you add one dependency, it will download its child dependencies also. With this transitive dependency management advantage, downloading child dependencies automatically. It is downloading my child dependencies automatically. Disadvantage, downloading unwanted dependencies also, they will waste the memory. They will waste JVM's memory, because whenever the dependency is added in the pom.xml, jar file will be loaded. That jar file will be loaded into JVM's memory. That memory will be wasted. So what is the solution for this problem? What is the solution for the problem? If we want to remove the child dependencies, then we can exclude them. So unwanted dependencies we can exclude from the pom.xml. I want to spring a context, but I don't want AOP. So when I add the context dependency, AOP is also coming by default. So if you are using AOP in the project, there is no problem. If you are using AOP in the project, there is no problem. If you are not using AOP, then why to keep in the build path? Why to load the AOP classes into JVM? Unnecessarily memory will be wasted. So in this scenario, what we can do is, whatever the child dependencies, I want to context, but context is downloading AOP also. I don't want the AOP. So when you don't want the child dependencies, you can go for exclusion. So Maven providing dependency exclusion. So which child dependencies you don't want? So this is your parent dependency called context. When you add the context, AOP is coming. I want context. I don't want AOP. Then you exclude AOP dependency from the context dependency. How to do that? After version, I'm going to write exclusion stack. I'm going to write exclusion stack. Inside the exclusion stack, we can write exclusion tag, group ID. So what is our group ID? org.spring framework. What is artifact ID? Springer AOP that I don't want. Spring AOP that I don't want. Now, like this, we are configuring dependency exclusion in the pom.xml. Like this, we are adding dependency exclusion in the pom.xml. Save it. So after adding the dependency exclusion, AOP not removed. So whenever you make some changes to pom.xml, you right click on the project and you do Maven reload the project. Reload the project. Okay. So click on reload the project. Reload it. Now can you see AOP is available or AOP is not available? Guys, AOP is available or AOP is not available now? Are we able to exclude AOP dependency now? Are we able to exclude AOP dependency now? Come on, guys. So you understand what is transitive dependency management, what is advantage, what is disadvantage with the transitive dependency management, what is advantage and what is disadvantage with the transitive dependency management. So whenever you add one dependency, Maven is going to download child dependencies also. That is called transitive dependency management. So whenever you add one dependency, Maven is downloading child dependencies also, which is called transitive dependency management. Advantage is downloading child dependencies automatically. Disadvantage, downloading unwanted dependencies also, they will be loaded into JVM and they will waste the JVM's memory. So if we want to remove if we want to remove unwanted child dependencies, if we want to remove unwanted child dependencies, then we need to use dependency exclusion concept. So like below. So here I'm taking context dependency. Context is giving AOP also, but I don't want AOP. Then I can exclude AOP dependency from here. Then I can exclude AOP dependency from here. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? Very good. So with this we understood what is Maven dependencies concept. So the libraries that are required to develop our Java application is called as Maven dependency. So we need some dependencies. We need some dependencies. Guys, some people are saying some sound is coming. That is my keyboard sound, guys. So when I type something in my keyboard, maybe you are getting some sound. Is it that sound? Are you getting now? Yeah, it's my keyboard sound, guys. Okay, good. So I will try to change my keyboard tomorrow. Libraries that are required to develop our Java applications are called as Maven dependencies. Okay, not keyboard sound. What other sound you are getting? Maybe fan sound. Let me switch off my fan. Are you getting that sound now? Still you are getting the sound? Maybe my mic issue there. I switched off my fan also. Yeah, fine guys. So we are talking about Maven dependencies. So Maven dependency is nothing but the libraries that are required to develop our Java application are called as Maven dependencies. So these are the dependencies we are using in our project. We need to add the dependencies in Maven project pom.xml file. When we add the dependencies in the pom.xml file, then Maven will download those dependencies. When we download Maven dependencies, right? So when we add the dependencies in the pom.xml, Maven will download. Where we can find the dependencies, we can find them in the mvnrepository.com. So these are the dependencies available for us. Okay. After adding the dependency in the pom.xml file, then right click on the project, right click on the project and reload the project. Okay. So Maven is performing transdiv dependency management. What is the meaning of transdiv dependency management? Spring context, when you add other dependencies, it is adding. Spring JDBC, when you add Spring transaction, it is downloading. So this is called transdiv dependence. That means downloading the child dependencies automatically is called as transdiv dependency management. Advantage is there, disadvantage is there. How to overcome the disadvantage? By using dependency exclusion concept. Okay, so if you don't want the child dependencies, then you can exclude them by using exclusion tag in the pom.xml. So this is the example for dependency exclusion. And the next one, there is a concept called dependency scope concept is available. There is a concept called dependency scope concept. So whenever we are adding a dependency, for the dependency some scope also will be available. So dependency scope will decide when that dependency should be included in the build path. Okay, when the dependency should be loaded by the Maven into our project. So some dependencies like JUnit dependency. JUnit dependency is required when we are testing the project, right? So Spring is required when we are compiling the project. Tomcat is required when we are running the project, like this. So some dependencies are required based on some scenario. So that the dependency, when the dependency should be loaded into our application, we can specify by using dependency scope. Dependency scope will decide when Maven should load that dependency into our application. So there are several scopes available. You can go to Maven website and you can check what are the dependency scopes available. Go to Apache Maven. Welcome to Apache Maven. So here you can search for dependency scopes in the Maven. Maven archetype plugins, dependencies will be available. Not this one. Source code management. Introduction. What is Maven? Somewhere you can find out. Some documentation will be there, guys. So in the documentation, we can see where is that dependency scope. So multiple scopes will be available. Maven dependency scope, dependency mechanism. So transitive dependencies we are able to see. When you add A is dependent on B is dependent on C is dependent on D. So when you add A, it is downloading all those dependencies. It is downloading all those dependencies. Now, dependency scope concept is available. Can you read this point? What are the dependency scopes available for the Maven? Dependency scope. Can you read this point? What is dependency scope? Dependency scope will decide when Maven should load that dependency into our application. Dependency scope will decide when the Maven should load the dependency into our application. Compile scope is available, which is the default. Provided is available, runtime is available, test is available, system is available, import is available. So like this, there are 6 scopes available. Maven dependency scope. Dependency scope will decide when Maven should load the dependency into our application. Compile, runtime, test, provided, system, and import. Can you guys please read these scopes theoretically? I'm giving 3 minutes of time. Please go through these points and let me know what you understood from this documentation. Dependency scope concept. Are you guys understanding? Adding in the class path means loading to the JVM. Adding to the class path means loading to the JVM. Dependency scope. Dependency scope will represent when the dependency should be loaded into class path. There are 6 scopes available. One is called compile. Next one is provided. Okay. The next one is runtime. The next one is test. Then system and import. Like this, multiple dependency scopes available. Dependency scope is used to limit the transitivity of a dependency and to determine when a dependency is included in the class path. There are 6 scopes available. One is called compile, second one is provided, third one is runtime, fourth one is test, then system, then import. Like this, multiple scopes available. Dependency scope is used to limit the transitivity of a dependency and determine when a dependency is included in the class path. Okay, compile means that is the default scope. Like this, you can specify the scope for a dependency. I need this dependency when my project is getting compiled. I need this dependency when my project is getting compiled. For example, I want to add some JUnit dependency in my project, which is used for unit testing. Okay, let me find out JUnit dependency. Jupyter API JUnit dependency. Okay, 5.x. What is the scope of the JUnit test? That means JUnit dependency is required when we are testing our application. When we want to perform unit testing of our application, then we are going to use JUnit dependency. So group ID for JUnit, artifact ID for JUnit, version for the JUnit, scope we are giving as a tester. Now right click on the Maven project, Maven, reload the project. Then the dependency will be downloaded. Now you can see JUnit dependencies are downloaded. JUnit dependencies are downloaded. So when we add the dependency in the pom.xml, Maven will download the dependencies, will add to the class path. So when you want to load the dependency, you can specify by using dependency scope. If you don't specify any scope for the dependency, then it will consider default as compile. So at the time of project compilation only, the dependencies will be loaded. If you specify runtime, the dependency will be loaded only when your project is running. In the compilation, the dependency will not be available. In the execution phase, the dependency will be available. When you give it as a tester, when the unit testing is executing, then only the dependency will be loaded. Scope test means when the unit testing is happening, then the dependency will be loaded. Are you guys able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me? What is the dependency scope? Dependency scope will decide when Maven should load the dependency into our class path. So there are 6 types of dependencies available. One is a compile, next one is runtime, test, provided, system, import. Compile, which is default scope. Compile, that is the default scope. If you don't specify anything, then by default it will go with the compile. So when the project is compiling, then that compiled scope dependency will be loaded. When the scope is a runtime, so in the compilation phase, that dependency will not be available. When the project is running, then only the dependency will come. Test means when we are executing the unit test cases, then only the dependency will be available. And the next one, provided nothing but, so compilation time I need the dependency, but in the runtime I don't need it. Okay, that is called provided. If you see provided scope, if you see the provided scope here, this is much like a compile, but indicates you expect the JDK container to provide the dependency at the runtime. In the compilation, we will use it. In the runtime, we don't use it. For example, Tomcat container, servlet API dependencies. In the compilation time, we need the servlet dependency. But in the runtime, Tomcat server will take care of the servlet container. So in the compilation phase, we need, but in the runtime, provider will take care of the dependency. For that, we will go for this provided scope. So when we are adding servlet dependency will come with the provided scope. Let us go to MVN repository. Let us identify servlets API. Identify servlets API, Java X servlet API. So when you go to Java X servlet, Jakarta servlet API, so when you go to the Jakarta servlet API dependency version, now you check it, what is the scope is coming? The scope is coming as provided. That means whenever I am compiling the project, servlet jars are required. When I am running the project, Tomcat server will take care of the servlet API. That is called provided. At the compilation, I need, in the runtime, my container will provide the jars required for that. So that is called provided scope. So I hope you got the clarity. Compile, runtime, test, provided. Compile means that is a default scope. If you don't specify any scope, then by default it will go as compile. Coming to runtime. So whenever my project is executing, then the dependencies should be loaded. Test. Test means when the project unit testing is happening, then the dependencies should be loaded. Provider. Provided means we will add the dependency at the time of compilation phase. In the runtime, it will be provided by container. Example, servlet. Okay. System. The jar files is available in my local system. Maven no need to download. The system scope means in our file system only the jars are available. Import means from another Maven project, if you want to import the dependencies, then you can go for import scope. Generally, we don't use these two dependency scopes, guys. We will use these four scopes: compile, runtime, test, and provided. Compile, runtime, test, and provided dependencies we are going to use in the project. System and import is available. So if you see system, similar to provided, expect you have to provide the jar which contains it explicitly, always available and not looked up in the repository. So you don't want to Maven to download the dependency. I want to provide the dependency which is available in my system. That is system scope. Import. This scope is only supported for a dependency type of form in the dependency management section. That means if you want to inherit the dependencies from one project to another project, then we will go for the import scope. Okay, these two are not used. Mainly we are going to go with the four scopes. System means you explicitly specify the dependency available in your system. Import means from one Maven project, if you want to import the dependencies, then you need to go for import scope. So dependency scope will decide when Maven should load the dependency into our application. Compile, runtime, test, provided, system, import scopes are available. Next one, there is a concept called Maven repositories. We are adding the dependencies in the pom.xml. Maven is downloading the dependencies and Maven is adding the dependencies to the project build path. Okay, so build path means from where we are accessing the jar files. But the question is from where Maven is downloading these dependencies, guys. So that's where we need to understand one topic, which is Maven repositories concept. We need to understand one topic called Maven repositories topic. Maven repositories topic. What is the meaning of Maven repositories? So Maven repositories, repository is a location where the libraries are stored. Maven repository is a location where Maven dependencies are stored. We are adding dependency in the pom.xml. We are adding dependency in the pom.xml. Maven is downloading them. We are adding dependencies in the pom.xml. Maven is downloading them. You got my point? Okay, so the dependencies are stored in one place and from there Maven is downloading. From which location Maven is downloading the dependencies, that place is called as Maven repository. Maven repository is a location where Maven dependencies will be stored. Maven tool will deal with three types of repositories, guys. We have three types of repositories for the Maven. What are those three types of repositories? One is called as central repository. One is called as central repository. Third one is called as remote repository. And fourth one is called as local repository. Okay. Maven repository is a location where Maven dependencies will be stored. Maven tool will deal with three types of repositories. One is called central repository. Another one is called remote repository. Third one is called local repository. Central repository, nothing but public. Okay. Official repository from where Maven downloading the dependencies. Remote repositories, nothing but private repositories. Companies will maintain their own repositories, company specific. Okay, every company will have their own repositories. To maintain these remote repositories, companies will use a software called Nexus or JFrog. Okay, so when you go for company specific remote repository will be available, which is called Nexus or JFrog repository. So in every software company, remote repository will be available. So that is a private repository. Company specific libraries will be available in that. Public means anybody can download. Now we are downloading JUnit. We are downloading Spring. We are downloading Spring Boot, Hibernate. All these dependencies are coming from the central. It is public. By default, whenever we add a dependency in the pom.xml, by default, Maven will download the dependencies from the central repository only. That is the default behavior of the Maven. Okay, and central repository. What is a repository? Repository is a location where Maven dependencies will be stored. So there are three types of repositories available in the Maven. Maven will deal with three types of repositories. One is called central repository. Another one is called remote repository. Another one is called local repository. Central repository is a public repository accessible for everybody. Remote repository is a private repository that is specific to particular company. So companies will maintain the repository by using Nexus or JFrog. And the next one, local repository. Local repository will be available in our machine, which is .m2 folder. So whenever you add a Maven dependencies, Maven will download the dependency from the central. Maven will download the dependency from the central. Now, what will happen? How these dependencies are going to work, guys? Okay. So when you are dealing with a Maven project, so this is our Maven project. Assume that our pom.xml file is available. In this pom.xml file, we will add a dependency. Then first, Maven will check for dependencies in our local repository. Maven will check for the dependencies in the local repository. Local repository in the sense our M2 folder in our system. When we create a Maven project, by default one local repository will be created. That local repository is called .m2 folder. When you add the dependency in the pom.xml file, first it will check for dependency in the local repository. That means in your system that the dependency is already available or not. Okay, so let me show you my local repository. So for everyone, local repository will be available in your system. Go to your C drive. In the C drive, users folder, then admin. My username is admin. Here you can see .m2 folder. Okay, so go to .m2 folder. Repository is available. Inside the repository, all the dependencies are available. For example, JUnit is available. JUnit dependency, multiple versions of JUnit is available. Now, if you see the dependency I have added, Spring Context, ORG Spring Framework Spring Context dependency is added. Go to the repository, find out ORG folder, ORG. In the ORG, go to Spring Framework. In the ORG, go to Spring Framework. In the Spring Framework, Spring Context is available. Let me delete the complete Spring Framework dependency now. So Spring Framework is having so many dependencies, right? So if you delete this one, all the Spring framework dependencies will be deleted. Or else, let me delete Spring context. Context multiple versions available. Let me delete the Spring context from this folder. Spring context support I have deleted. Spring Beans I have deleted. Spring Core I have deleted. Spring AOP I have deleted. Spring JCL I have deleted. Spring JDBC I am deleting. Spring Transaction, Spring Web, Spring Web MVC. I have deleted all the dependencies. Now let us go to this project, Maven project. Let me do the Maven reload project. Now you see resolving the dependencies. Now again, if you see Spring context is available. Just now it is downloading. So that means first it is checking for the dependency in the local repository. If the dependency is available in the local repository, then it will give the dependency to the project. First, it will check for the dependency in the local repository. If it is available in the local repository, it will give the dependency to the project. If the dependency not available in the local, then what Maven will do? It will check in the local repository for the dependency. If it is available in the local repository, it will give the dependency to the project. If it is not available in the local repository, then Maven will go to central repository and will download. Central repository will be maintained by Apache people. So that is the default central repository. So when you add the dependency in the pom.xml, first it will check in the local repository, that is the .m2 folder. In our system C drive users, the local repository will be available. Local repository will be available only in our machine. Okay, local repository will be available in our machine. This is the path where the local repository is available. See users username .m2. .m2 means it is a hidden folder. You need to enable the hidden folders. How to see the hidden folders? Go to File Explorer option in your system. If you are not able to see the .m2 folder, you need to enable one setting. Go to File Explorer options in your system. Go to View, Show Hidden Files folders. Show Hidden Files folders. By default, don't show hidden files will be available. If you click Show Hidden Files, then .m2 folder will be displayed for you. So this is our local repository. Okay, so fine. Whenever we are adding the dependency in the pom.xml, Maven will check for the dependency in the local repository, which is .m2. If the dependency not available in the local repository, then it will connect with the central repository. It will download the dependency from central repository to local repository for first time. Only one time it will download from central to local. Then from second time, it will give the dependency from local repository to the project. It will give from local repository to the project. So like this, we are getting Maven dependencies now. I added Spring context dependency. First, it will check in the local. If it is available, directly give to the project. Directly add to the project build path. If it is not available in the local, then it will connect with the central repository and it will download from the central. Who will maintain the central repository? Central repository will be maintained by Apache organization, and that is a public repository. Central repository will be maintained by Apache organization and it is public repository. Local repository will be available in our machine and central repository will be maintained by Apache organization and that is public repository. Are you guys able to follow this? Local repository will be available in our machine. Central repository will be maintained by Apache organization and that is public repository. Suppose when we go for the software company, so there are some libraries only specific to our company, not for public people. Then we will go with the remote repository. So my Maven tool should connect with the remote repository and some company specific libraries we need to download from remote repository to local repository. But by default, we cannot work with the remote repository. We need to learn one tool called Nexus or JFrog, how to set up the remote repositories. In the real time, DevOps engineers are going to set up this Nexus JFrog repositories for us. We will configure the Nexus JFrog repositories in the Maven settings.xml file. Once you join in the project, they will give you one settings.xml file. That settings.xml file will have the configuration to connect with the company remote repository to download the dependencies. Remote repositories are called as private repositories. These are company specific or project specific. So we will use Nexus and JFrog to set up the remote repositories. In the companies we will use, Nexus or JFrog tools, to set up remote repositories. Okay. Local repository means it will be available only in your system. Okay. Central repository maintained by Apache and it is a public repository. And remote repositories are called as private repositories. Those are specific to particular company. There are some jar files available. Those jar files we need to use only within our company, not for other people. Then we will go for remote repositories. How we will manage remote repositories in the company? How we will manage remote repositories in the company? The remote repositories will be managed by using tools like JFrog and Nexus. So in the companies, we will use Nexus or JFrog tools to set up the remote repositories, and those tools will be taken care by DevOps. People. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my points? What is Maven repository? Repository is a location where Maven dependencies will be stored. Maven tool will deal with three types of repositories, guys. One is called central repository, which is public. Another one is remote repository, which is private, or I can say company specific repository. Third one is local repository. That will be available in our machine, which is .m2. Local repository will be available in our machine. This is the path of the local repository. Central repository will be maintained by Apache organization. Central repository will be maintained by Apache organization, that is public repository. Remote repositories are called as private repositories. These are company specific repositories. In companies, we will use Nexus, JFrog tools to set up the remote repositories. For the JRTP people, we will discuss Nexus tool also in the coming classes to understand what is remote repository and how to work with the remote repository. Okay, and what will happen when we add a dependency in the pom.xml? When we add the dependency in the pom.xml file, Maven will search for it in the local repository first. As we discussed in the diagram, whenever you add the dependency in the pom.xml, first it will search for the dependency in the local. If not available, then it will search in the central by default. If you configure remote repository in the Maven, then it will connect with the remote repository. It will download the dependencies from the remote repository. So central repository we are connecting by default. Then how to connect with the remote repository? To connect with the remote repository, guys, in the Maven tool, we have configured Maven, right? See program files, Maven setup we have done. In the Apache Maven configuration, there will be one file called settings.xml. In this settings.xml, we need to configure remote repository details. Okay, settings.xml file will be available. In the settings.xml, we need to configure our remote repository details. Then it can connect with the remote repository to download the dependencies from the remote repository. Are you guys clear with my point? MVN repository, Maven repository, both are same, man. Yes. So once you join in the company, they will give you the settings.xml file where the remote repository details will be available. You just need to keep the settings.xml file in the Maven configuration folder. Then your Maven tool will connect with the remote repository to download the dependencies. So for the JRTP people, in the future classes, we are going to learn the Nexus tool also, so that we will understand how to work with remote repositories in the project. In the real time, it's compulsory that every project will use remote repository. They were using either Nexus or JFrog tools to set up the remote repositories. So we need to modify Maven settings.xml to connect with the, we need to modify Maven settings.xml file to connect with remote repository. So in the company, definitely we are going to work with the remote repository. In the company, we are going to work with the remote repository. Okay, we need to modify Maven settings.xml file to connect with the remote repository. So in the future classes, we are going to learn the Nexus tool. Then we will understand how to work with the remote repository. Are you clear? So how many times Maven will download a dependency, guys? How many times Maven will download the dependency? If I am adding one dependency in 3 projects, will it download 3 times or it will download only 1 time? Maven will download 3 times or Maven will download only 1 time? Maven will be downloading only 1 time. Okay. So by default, whenever we add a dependency, it will check in the local repository. If it is available, it will give to the project directly. If it is not available in the local, then it will go to the central. It will download from the central. If you configure remote repository in the settings.xml file, so to work with the remote repository, to show you the remote repository, I need to explain the Nexus in the JRTP batch. For the project people, Nexus tool also part of the syllabus. When we go for the Nexus tool, then we will understand how to set up the remote repository, how to connect it to the remote repository, how to download the dependencies from the remote repository. Practically, we are going to learn that concept also in the coming classes. Okay, good. So with this, we understood what is Maven, what is build process, Maven setup, Maven terminology, okay, Maven project creation, and Maven goals execution. And we discussed about Maven dependencies. We discussed about Maven dependencies, and we discussed about Maven dependency scopes, Maven dependency scopes concept, and we discussed about Maven repositories, Maven dependency scopes, Maven dependencies. We learned here, right? So what is Maven? Maven is a build tool. It is used to automate Java projects build process. We have done the Maven setup. So if you want to use Maven from the CLI, then only Maven setup is required. If you are using from IDE, then setup is not required. Directly it will work. Coming to the Maven terminology, archetype, group ID, artifact ID, version, we have seen. Maven dependencies, dependency exclusion also we understood. Dependency, Maven dependencies, dependency exclusion we have discussed. Dependency scopes we discussed, and Maven repositories also we discussed. Repositories, nothing but the place where Maven dependencies will be maintained. There are 3 types of repositories: local repository, central repository, and remote repository. So by default, Maven will check in the local. If it is not available, then only it will go for the central. If you configure settings.xml with the remote repository, then Maven can connect with the remote repository and will download the dependencies. Dependency scope. Dependency scope will represent when the dependency should be loaded into our build path. There are 6 scopes available: compile, runtime, provided, test, system, import. Compile is the default scope. Okay. Dependency exclusion. Maven is performing transdiv dependency management. Whenever you add one dependency, Maven is downloading child dependencies also. When you add the context dependency, it is downloading AOP also. When you don't want the child dependencies, then you can go for dependency exclusion concept. What are the dependencies in the Maven? The libraries that are required for the project are called as Maven dependencies. And Maven goals execution. Maven goals execution. Maven goals execution, nothing but when you want to perform the build process, several goals are available: clean, compile, package, test, install. So like that, goals are available. Clean means delete the target. Compile means compile the source code. Test means execute the test cases. Package means package our project as a jar file or war file. Okay. And the next one, install goal. It is going to store the dependency, the project jar file into our repository. Then Maven project we created, terminology we understood, setup we have done, build process. Maven is mainly used to automate Java projects build process. If you want to use Maven, first Java should be configured in your system, because Maven tool is developed by Java tool. Java software is mandatory in order to use Maven in our machine. So that's why first we configure Maven, then we will configure, first we'll configure Java, then we will configure Maven. All right. So with this, we are done with our build tool Maven. So what is the alternate for the Maven? That is Gradle. The alternate for the Maven is Gradle. So today, task for you, I want you to analyze, I want you to practice this Maven as well as go through Gradle also. In the real time, some projects are using Maven, some projects are using Gradle. So I'm giving my 30 minutes video on the Gradle. Gradle build tool step-by-step guide I have here. I just want you people to go through this video so that you will understand what is Gradle. If you are not able to understand this, then I will explain Gradle also in our class. Gradle tutorial. Okay, so in this video I explained what is Gradle. Maven alternate is Gradle. Maven alternate is Gradle. So I want you people to go through this Gradle today and practice it. Okay, so if you are not able to understand this Gradle, then I will take a class on the Gradle also. All right, now I'm going to upload these notes in the portal. And for Spring Boot people, today 9:30 class is not there, guys. I already sent a message in the group. I have some personal work. We have tomorrow class for the Spring Boot. I'm going to update the notes in the portal. I want you people to practice this Maven and please go through the Gradle. Gradle is the assignment for you. You need to work on the Gradle tool before coming to tomorrow's session. I'm updating Maven notes. Yeah, all of you check it in the website. I have uploaded Maven running notes. Final notes of the Maven I have uploaded. Perfect, guys. Good. Thank you. So with this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again in the tomorrow session.